Look, let's cut the shit, all right? I know that 99% of you who are thinking about starting up a clothing brand are only doing so to make money. And as somebody who's been running a clothing brand the past 9 years and literally just started up my second one within the past year, I can almost guarantee that you're underestimating the realities, like upfront inventory costs and constant reinvestment, slow turnover, low margins, marketing spend. People think that they're going to be able to make money easily in the clothing brand space, and that's just not true. It's brutally hard, and on top of that, standing out is practically impossible. It's so hard, in fact, to create a successful clothing brand that most people give up within the first 3 months, and businesses that do become successful usually have been reinvesting their profits back into their brand to grow it bigger and bigger for years and years and years. And so this isn't a cash flow business. If you're looking to make money right away, this is more of a long-term equity play. What that means is that you're working on building this brand into something that you could eventually sell or exit in the future. Because of this fact, this is why I turned my lifestyle brand that I've been running for 9 years into a print-on-demand based business where everything is made to order. I don't carry any inventory. It helps it become more of a cash flow business. And at the same time, this is why I launched my second brand, Therapy Wear. It's a high ticket item that we can sell for a high cost with very good margins, and it's only one product so that we can manage all of the logistical complexity that would normally go into a clothing brand. And at the same time, Therapy Wear is still a long-term equity play. I'm only gonna say this once because it's pretty controversial, but I've worked with thousands of clothing brands over the years, and honestly, 99% of them should have never started up a clothing brand. And that's what this video is about. I wanna tell you what you should have done instead, rather than getting into the clothing business, getting into the clothing space and diving in head first without knowing what you're getting into. This is what you should have done instead. Now, before I dive into all of this, I want you to write in the comments, have you already started up a clothing brand or thinking about running one? Or did you just see the title of this video and thought it was interesting and you're just curious? Then after hearing what I have to say, I want you to let me know if you still feel like starting up a clothing brand or if I've opened your eyes to going down this new direction. The smarter play in 99% of cases would be to just start a YouTube channel, start a TikTok account, start an Instagram account, and build a social media presence. Why do I say this? Because the success of your clothing brand at the end of the day is going to come down to one thing: distribution. And when you start up a clothing brand, if you don't already have a following and if you don't already have something to leverage, you're going to struggle to get distribution and to get sales anyways. And so your only solution at that point will be to just invest tons and tons of money into marketing spend. Your margins will become basically non-existent if that's your only form of marketing, and you're going to really struggle to make this work at the end of the day. You're just going to spin your tires, and it's going to be really, really difficult. What sets most brands apart is the size of their audience and the size of their community. And you can start doing this right away without a clothing brand and without something to sell. Your content's likely going to perform so much better. You're going to have no agenda. You're not trying to sell your clothing and all of your content, which makes the content so much more valuable and will allow you to blow up your account so much faster. When you build up a following first, you gain leverage, and this becomes instant equity in any direction. You could launch a clothing brand later, or you could even decide that you don't want to deal with the logistical complexity and thin margins of a clothing brand, but you'd rather start a coaching business or get sponsorships, start a paid community, do a marketing agency, all of these other businesses that are 1,000 times more profitable and 10,000 times easier to scale and to run as a business owner. What most new clothing brand owners don't understand is that even though it's really easy to get started at the beginning and there's a very low barrier to entry because anybody can just create designs and put them on a t-shirt, the scaling of a clothing brand is one of the most difficult businesses to run ever. And I say this because you're going to be expanding your product line. Each of those products will likely have small through triple extra large. So there's a million different SKUs. You need to be able to weigh out which ones are selling through, which ones aren't selling through, and at what rate their sell-through rate is. Then you need to constantly reinvest in more and more and more inventory if you decide to go that route. Constant marketing, ad spend, designs, keeping up with trends. It is literally one of the most difficult businesses in the world to run as you scale. The reason I'm saying this now is because since I rebranded this channel from Apparel Success to Prsa, I can finally just be straight up honest with you about this. most people should never start up a clothing brand. It is just a really hard industry to succeed in. It's going to suck up a lot of your money, a lot of your time, and standing out in it and competing in it is just a brutal industry. This isn't to say that some people aren't cut out for it and that every single person thinking about starting up a clothing brand, it's a bad idea. But at the same time, you just have to know this. So in a second, I'm going to show you specifically how you can still leave this option open to starting a clothing brand while giving yourself so many other avenues that you could potentially go down. But first, if you need designs for any business that you decide to start, check out my buds over at design.com. Open up a new tab, go to design.com/Rob88. Use the AI logo generator, type in whatever idea you have for a design. Thousands of designs will come up that you can edit and refine as long as you want for free until it's perfect. I've used this a ton of times to make designs within my own businesses. If you're interested, head over to design.com/Rob88 and you'll get up to 88% off at checkout. You might be thinking at this point, if I'm not starting up a clothing brand, what should I build my social media presence around? Should I start up just my brand name and grow a following there, or should I do a personal brand? And I highly recommend starting with a personal brand. The reason you want to build a following under your own personal brand is because you can build a following in any niche that you decide to go down. You're not pigeonholed in whatever brand name you decide to come up with. And then when you do build that following, if you want to come up with a clothing brand, you could just spin off a clothing brand later and sell it to that audience, or push your audience towards your clothing brand, or whatever business you want. But this leaves your options open and it gives you so much value and so many different directions that you can go in. If you look at the Nelk Boys and what they did through their YouTube channel, they ended up launching their big merch company that was the Nelk Clothing, and that was all after building up their following on YouTube. Look at what Mr. Beast did. He built up a huge following on YouTube, and then he launched his food product, Feastables, and other products that he's selling and monetizing his audience through. Look at what Logan Paul did. He built up this huge audience, and then he launched Prime, which is like one of the biggest drink companies in the world, and a clothing line, Maverick, but it was only because he had the distribution of his audience. Now, maybe you're thinking that this route isn't for you, that you're just not cut out to build up an audience on Instagram or on YouTube. Well, what's your alternative here? You're going to start up a clothing brand and then that's going to go viral somehow? Because even though you can't start up a personal brand, somehow you're going to be able to make it work with your clothing brand. It's going to be way harder when you're trying to sell something and when it's under a brand name, believe me. Maybe you decide that you want to go the Facebook ads route because you're really good at Facebook ads and you understand the margins very well. Well, then in that scenario, honestly, go for it, because that might be the only alternative left for you aside from going the retail market and trying to get it into stores and growing that way. But to be honest, that really feels like thin margins as well. Getting the sell-through rate through stores when you don't have any social media presence to begin with is going to be really difficult. I'm all about being honest here. There's too many YouTubers talking about why you want to start a clothing brand, and they're just trying to get you into their mastermind. And even though I help clothing brand owners, I don't think that starting up a clothing brand is right for everybody. The only reason K-Bud worked out well was because I had built up an audience. Thank God I somehow managed to make it work. With Therapy Wear, it was all through ads because our margins were working. And even that, we've now had to work with a new manufacturer to try and get our margins down to make that marketing strategy work. And so if you were to start up a clothing brand, I can't judge you. I've started too. And to be honest, if you want to do this just for the sheer enjoyment and you're not in that 99% that's just doing it to make money, maybe you're artistic and you just love this space, go for it. It's absolutely amazing and you can have a blast doing it. But if you want a lower risk option with less upfront costs that's going to give you more equity in any direction and give you the marketing experience that you need in order to make your clothing brand successful, then I think that in most cases, trying to build up a following for yourself and a personal brand in whatever niche passion that you have is likely going to set you up to make a successful clothing brand anyways. And maybe you'll decide along the way that the clothing brand route wasn't the best option for you to begin with. Just do this as a test. For 30 days, try and blow up your own personal accounts on social media, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And you'll likely see just how hard it is to get views, to build up a following, to build a community in your niche when starting up a clothing brand and doing it through a brand where you're trying to sell something is so much harder. I hope that this opened your eyes to an alternative direction that you can go down that will still leave the clothing brand option open, but will just introduce so much more equity into your life in any direction, and I hope that you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I read every single one. Hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.